name is Sierra, and I'm a ceramicist.
My name is Hasmin, and I'm also a ceramicist.
And together we founded Franca in Brooklyn, New York.
At Franca, we do ceramics, but we specialize in slip casting, which is a process where we use molds and liquid clay.
We primarily focus on small batch production, so all of our design work we do in-house, and we make everything from start to finish with our hands. Franca started 3 years ago. We founded the company in 2016. The two of us had studied together at Pratt Institute, an art school in Brooklyn, and we were great friends, and we had the idea of starting a design studio together.
The name Franca came out of the term lingua franca, which is basically the bridge language between two people that speak different native tongues. For us, that really connected because I'm half Cuban, half Uruguayan, and I was born in Paraguay.
I was half French, half Chinese. I was born in the US but grew up in China, so we kind of both come from such diverse cultural backgrounds. We wanted to find a word that had meaning and that actually resonated with both of us, not just with one of us more than the other. And we felt that it was the right name. And
it just clicked immediately.
Yeah. So I think the product that we design, we make an effort to design everything together. So I think it's kind of like a cultural meshing of pieces that resonate with me and my cultural background and pieces and designs and shapes that resonate with Hasmin. And it's kind of finding a way to bring the two together in a harmony that they look good as a collection. We're definitely inspired by our upbringing and our cultures and even just our travels.
Looking at patterns from other cultures and the color palettes that you see in other cities really becomes a part of what we take into account for every collection.
Basically, before we even started the studio, we decided to go to Jingdezhen, which is a very small town in south central China. It's known as the birthplace of porcelain. So we went there kind of on an inspiration trip.
The community in Jingdezhen is very open. We mainly work with small family-run studios. They're actually very happy to have us there and teach us and just put up with all of our questions and just show us the process, how they do it, because honestly, we have so much to learn still. Every time we go over there, we're like, oh, this just makes so much more sense.
The reason why we go is kind of to learn and shadow the people. Basically just physically watching and learning, seeing how they do it with their two hands and kind of copying and practicing. My godfather has a big ceramic studio there, and he's really helped us. He has basically showed us when we need to get things done or buy things. He tells us the best way to do things. And so even now when we have problems here, we can show him photos and he can tell us what we're doing wrong or to try something. So it's kind of nice to have someone who has a lot more experience. The process that we do, slip casting, probably has, I would say, quite a few more steps than traditional pottery. Basically, the first thing we do is we design the form that we want to make a mold of, and then either you can make the original positive in plaster and clay, you could 3D print it, it could be a found object of something you like, and then essentially the first big step is making the plaster mold that you're going to be using. Once you have the plaster mold, you let it dry, and then you can start casting in it with slip, which is liquid clay. So we actually work with quite a few different types of clay at our studio. So depending on the type of clay you're using, also the weather, how hot, how humid it is, that dictates how long you cast in the mold. The next step would be setting a timer, and then say 30 minutes later, you pour the slip out, and what you're left with is a shell of the piece.
Of the shape.
Yeah.
Then you wait until that shell becomes dry enough for you to be able to safely lift it out of the mold without deforming it. So you wait, you lift it out, and you wait for it. Well, we trim it when it's fully bone dry to avoid any warping. So we trim it at the wheel, and we sand it, we sponge it so the surface is really smooth. Once that's done, we put it in the kiln and we bisque it.
And a bisque firing is a lower temperature firing. which usually still takes about 5 to 6 hours to heat up, but then the piece comes out completely white. So all the water has evaporated from it. And then we sponge them off to get any dust, and then we glaze them, and then they go back into the kiln for the final firing, which is a much higher temperature.
And it's a slightly longer firing too. And the cooling off period is definitely longer.
It takes a lot longer.
Yeah.
And then you open the kiln and you have your finished piece.
Yeah.
I feel like the whole medium of ceramics and just clay is very therapeutic. I think as soon as you touch clay, whether it be solid clay that you're gonna throw or even liquid clay, just dunking your hand in, there's something so calming about it. I mean, essentially it's kind of just like mud, and it's like, you think about when you're a kid and you're like playing in the mud and having fun.
You get into a rhythm by glazing or drawing on the pieces, or even sanding can become very repetitive, but in a good way, because you just kind of find that rhythm that just allows your mind to go and wander a little bit, and you're still doing your thing, but you can relax about it.
And I think the fact that it is a three-dimensional medium gives you so many more options for what you can do, whether it be something sculptural, something functional, or just it could be something that like a kid is just playing with and makes like a blob or their handprint in. It also just, a lot of it comes down to your personal creativity and like where you take the material. When we first started Franca, we were basically putting 150% in, where we were working 7 days a week, sometimes coming in very early in the morning, staying very late at night, sometimes like going home, eating dinner and coming back.
There was no balance.
And there was no balance. And so we kind of like took a step back and realized we need to have more structured hours. And so we know when we have like our time off and personal time and when we need to work. So where we're here from like 9 to 6 every day, weekdays. And we try to really not come in on weekends unless we're teaching a workshop or we have a really important order.
We realized we were gonna burn out, like it wasn't gonna last. So we're trying to make this as healthy and fun and professional as possible.
Yeah.
So just working 7 days a week was not gonna be the way to go long term.
I think defining success is something we've thought a lot about, and I think we're still in the process of defining it and what it means to us and us, Franca, as a whole. But I think doing something that you enjoy doing and that you're happy doing every day is kind of like my self-definition of success. I don't think it necessarily means you are crazy rich or you don't have to work and you like have people doing everything for you. I think kind of like being happy in what you're doing.
I think a lot of people in the creative field are trying to really push and pursue their passion and becoming their own bosses, and it's people are becoming a lot more conscious about how to live the lives they want to live. And a lot of that also involves surrounding yourself by things that go with your ideas of what kind of life you want.
Being happy doesn't mean you have to have so much of everything. It's kind of having things that make you happy and things that you enjoy. So I think instead of having like 30 mugs, which are all like $2, $3, $4 mugs that you buy or you collect, having like 3 mugs that you really appreciate kind of, I think, have more value to younger generations and a lot of our friends. So I actually don't think that the medium of ceramics is very fragile in the sense of you drop something, it most likely will break, but it can also be very strong. Especially we work with porcelain, which is one of the stronger types of clay, and you can make stools and furniture out of them that are strong enough for people to sit on. And it can last for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, ceramics. There's stuff dating back that it's still completely intact. They look like they were almost made yesterday if they were preserved well. So I think a lot of the pieces that we're creating, it's with the hopes that they're gonna be around for generations to come.
In my family, at least, there's pieces that have been passed down, and something you grow up with, it's a concept you grow up with.
There's something that you would pass on to like your kids, or like pieces that like people would almost like not fight over, but like want to keep and bring with them when they move.
And the fact that we work with that material, it just resonates in that way, and it just becomes, I think, timeless is the word.